And if there's any ice there, you slide that up in front of traffic and you can stop.
The best thing to do is just hit the gas. Just go. Right? Who agrees with me? Shut your eyes, grip the steering wheel hard. And then when you start sliding, just turn the wheel really hard. Do not do that.
And always slam on the brakes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then slam on the brakes in a panic.
Yep. That always helps.
Of course, it is a little disconcerting when you're going fast and all of a sudden you realize, I don't have control.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, it's nice when you can like tell that beforehand, and you're like,
Good.
okay, I don't have control anymore. We're gonna hit the stitch real quick. But we'll be right back on the road.
Yeah. Don't turn the wheel, just let it go. It'll be fine. That's why, you know, we're soft as you people. We should get rid of four-wheel drive, and every car should be rear-wheel drive to make you understand what it was like. You're not with me on that? You're good. I'm tired of kowtowing you, and no more vaccinations for you people. If I gotta suffer, you gotta suffer. And I'm so tired of clean water. Okay, so, no, actually, I'm just laughing about that, but somebody told me it's good for people your age to pay more for college because you're learning the value of hard work. Because I had to do it.
That's a scam.
You're right. You're right. If I suffered, you should suffer. Collective punishment. It's a what?
It's a scam.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's worth going, but it's way too much.
You're right. And they know you have to go, so they got you.
Yeah.
I'm moving this. Anybody want the CD for the monitor?
I'll just take the instructions for it.
The instruction. Good read. Okay, so see, it's in the middle of this box. In the middle of this box.
What's the back corner on?
Don't. God. By the way, once again, this is the honest part. Boy, it's really coming down.
Yeah.
Well, I do have an emergency kit, so I'm okay. They gave us an emergency bucket a few years ago, and with like a toilet paper and a flashlight with no batteries. My favorite part is one granola bar. Okay, so with that.
Hopefully it holds though, so you can see.
Huh?
Hopefully the snow holds so you can see.
Yeah.
You want that? Huh?
Yeah. Yeah, it's real sick. It's all rocks. No.
Yeah.
Not anymore. It's not.
Well, that's
Okay.
It was for like the first 2 weeks. It's been open for.
Do you want another assignment?
No.
Okay, you have to read the second part. Yeah, I gotta carry
I thought it was optional.
Sure, I guess technically it is optional. And you will have the quiz on it. So you do have to read. Oh, I didn't put it up. I'm not quite as far as I wanted to be. But you have to read. Like the sound effects.
Yes.
875 to 891 for Tuesday, and 875 to 891. So it's the end of chapter 19. And I am going to make a little assignment. Okay, I gave you this a while ago, but now we're going to start using it. That red, white, and blue review book. It's a great review book. It has all kinds of information in it. And so I am going to assign a question on it. I'm probably going to put it, I got to look at it again because one I originally was going to do, I didn't like. But those are questions that are more geared to the style they write in the AP exam. They're good. I'm trying to find a good one that meets what we want and what they want. I still don't know exactly what's going to be on the AP exam because the College Board is going to change it because of COVID. I just don't know what they're going to change it to. Just like the College Board changed the SAT. And the ACT might change too. Did you just shiver? I thought they shiver when I said they. Did you get cold? I just thought it was kind of funny. College Board changed the SAT. Oh no. Okay. I think it's going to be 7, 8 feet of snow.
And you still don't have a snow day.
Oh. Only when they only have a snow day when they panic and they don't mean to.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
They had a couple years ago and they were all worried. They called
Yeah.
the snow day and it turned out
They
to be
called it
nothing.
like 2 weeks early too.
Yeah.
And it was sunny.
Not, you're a slight exaggeration, but hyperbole works. Yeah, that's because they didn't have a snow day one day, and it was one of the iciest days I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
It was just unreal. And so then they overreacted. It's just the way things are.
Didn't a bus slide off the road with my?
Yeah, just. Yeah. So let's go ahead and get to this. What was the act that was going to turn American Indians into small farmers and it turned out to be an absolute disaster for them? Yeah, the Dawes Act. What is that? The horrific schools. Yeah, the Burke Act. What was the really tragic religion?
The ghost hands.
Yeah, and what was the horrible? Well, they called it a battle, but it was a massacre.
Wounded Knee.
Wounded Knee. Yeah. And what's it called? 160 acres. They would double to 320, but it wasn't enough. Homestead Act. Done open range. Okay, let's go ahead then. Oh, and rain follows what?
Wow.
See, someone plowed their fields. Now we got snow. Science. Okay, so we got the second industrial revolution. Let's go ahead and get through this. And I'm going to pick and choose some things you've already done your notes on, which was due on today. As I'm going through it, I'm giving some extra credit. I can tell some people did really good notes. Yeah, I'm not grading exactly the notes. I'm not going through step by step, but I'm looking at it and see you got main things down. Some people, I did catch a few people writing down, stuff happened, okay, grades happen. But yes, you might get one of those through, but it's taking a big risk. And so the second industrial revolution. So the factories, I think we got to this, right?
Yeah, we're right.
And did we tell you the,
No.
This is funny, textiles, railroads, iron, coal. Does that fit the first industrial revolution? So that's setting up the economic system we have today. It really is setting up our world and society, the good and bad elements of it. This market revolution. You can see this, and I have no idea how it did this, but I left it in there because I thought it was kind of interesting. You notice the white letters behind? I have no idea why those are there. But if I click it, it'll come up the Civil War. No idea. Okay, so the Civil War is the second big factor. And what the Civil War was, it set up new industrial procedures, methods to mass produce, a new type of businessman, a new type of entrepreneur. It forced companies to standardize. That's where shirt sizes come from. You can make a heck of a lot more shirts if you're not to worry about individual sizing. You just make mediums. And they did the same for shoes. Heck, they tried to standardize everything. Like in World War II, they tried to standardize seats for fighter pilots. It turned out to be an absolute disaster. What if they're really tall? What if they're really short and can't reach the pedals? Yes, they would eventually have seats that move. But next, so here are the main elements. You notice the shadowy letters? I have no idea why, but rows C are the things of the second industrial revolution and that will be developed in this era. Railroads again. But then what's oil? Anyone know? That's it. What's oil?
Oh.
Oh, yeah, thank you. O. O for oil, what's S?
Steel.
Steel. E. Electricity. And of course, chemicals. Petroleum industry directly leads to chemicals. Almost all chemicals come from petroleum. And also things that you never think about, like you take vitamins, petroleum. So there's some good and bad elements of this. Artificial colors, petroleum. Natural colors, bugs. Okay, with that, moving on. That's true. Next, labor supply. The labor supply went up during this time. And this not only increased the market, now I'm using a very cold economic term for it, but there are more people ready to work. And because of changes on the farm, there are people on the farm are moving to the cities. And this is going to lead to, it could lead to lower wages, but it also leads to a more dynamic workforce. And if there's workers, it allows for more different kind of companies. There are good and bad elements for workers, but we're just going through the basic elements of it. Next, banking. The banking industry and the finance industry really begin to mature in this area. In fact, much of the modern banking industry of today would start then. And all the things that happened, I'm sure you've heard a little bit about what happened with GameStop and the shorting of the market. We're not going to go into a lot of details of that, but they were doing that in the 1870s. They just didn't have the internet to get it by as fast, but they used the telegraph. 1893, almost exactly the same thing happened, and it could pass so fast because of the brand new telephone. It's almost the same thing. It's actually amazing how that stuff happens. It just keeps recycling itself. But shorting of the market, people buying puts or calls, it's the whole modern finance. But what this allowed for is availability of credit to buy capital. And so if you put your capital, make sure you put down credit. Business does not function without credit. You have to be able to borrow money. And capital, that's the means of production, AKA the machines. And this is going to set up an entirely new sector of the economy called finance. And that dominates the economy today, speculation. And by the way, also the GameStop thing also tells you how just absolutely ridiculous the stock market is. It's just one big casino. Everyone's gambling and trying to get rich. And the problem with that is no one's making anything.
Blockbuster stock went up more than GameStop stock.
I think by percentage. Yeah. And because everyone's short and I didn't know Blockbuster was still around.
It shouldn't be.
Next, populations. The population went up, and as it grew, the market went up. The market got bigger, more people to buy goods, and more people to work. Now, it's still not quite a consumer economy like we have today, based upon regular people buying stuff. But that's another story for a couple minutes. Next, Southern opposition was basically gone. Okay, so the South was completely opposed to things like a tariff and worried about the domination of banks. But part of the deal to end Reconstruction, Southern politicians said, okay, we'll let some of this go. Don't mess with Jim Crow. Don't mess with what we have in the South. Heck, we'll let you come in and get cheap labor for companies, AKA we'll have workers working for nothing down here. And that opposition dropped. So you have this weird kind of alliance between Northern Republicans who are very pro-big business and Southern Democrats who are just pro-big, whatever that might be. But don't think in terms of like now the Republican Party is now purely the party of big business and the Democrats, they were split. It was really, the parties were all over the place. All over the place. Today, it's a little bit different. The Republican Party is pretty much on one track. The Democratic Party is still pretty much all over the place. So, next, 7. Now the biggie. Technological innovations that built on previous innovation. I'll put this quote up here because it's from Isaac Newton. So you don't need to know it, but I put it up here just so you could read it. Because Newton did not invent calculus. If you like calculus, you can thank him and Kepler and others. But who likes calculus? A few of us. That's the only math I like. And I'm a math guy. College was cheaper too, though, I gotta be honest. But I've seen the further, but when Newton said this, he was standing on the shoulders of other greats when he came up with his innovation from Principia Mathematica, which came up with the theory of gravity. And also changed the entire course of thinking, but he didn't invent it. And the same thing here. You're gonna have all these different technologies will develop in this era because of previous technologies. I mean, the most basic element is no one's gonna invent a light bulb unless there's electricity. It just doesn't make sense. But once you have electricity, wow, look at all the innovation. I mean, a computer is silly to think about without electricity. So why even try? And this will give the appearance of an acceleration of thought. Like, wow, we're smarter than ever before. And every generation wants to think they are. No, it's just that your ideas of what is important for an economy, for society, how to survive, change. No one's going to invent a wheel if you have nothing to pull the wagon with. So, one of the biggies we have to get is the Bessemer process. The Bessemer and then the open heart process, I don't write this down, but this is for steel. And this would change the world. This was invented in Britain in the 1860s, but it really came to the United States at the end of the decade. Steel is stronger than iron, and you can make taller buildings. You can make rails that last longer. I mean, go on and on with steel. Steel would become the measure of an economy by the 20th century. And up until the 1970s, the United States led the world in steel. And then through partially greed and bad management of companies and really short-sighted economic policy, we kind of lost that. And most steel now is produced, the biggest producer is China. The biggest producer of high-quality steel is Germany. Because Germany did not have a short-sighted policy. Germany, I know, everyone has their own problems, but by the way, your desks are so old, these are still American steel. Feel good about that? Feel bad about that? You feel like, wow, this is more comfortable now. Okay, so, but this is huge. The new processes of making steel. And this is Homestead outside of Pittsburgh. Also, new ways of pollution. They say you can chew the air in Pittsburgh because it was so heavily polluted and particulates. Now, one of the things that will come out of this would, I'll get to that a little bit later. Another big one, refrigerated cars, and this would revolutionize food. Once you have refrigerated cars, if you stop at Swiss, and Jacob Armour would be the best known for this. Armour, Swift, you can centralize food production. That's what you have to centralize food production. Before, every town had to have 2 or 3 slaughterhouses. I mean, you would walk to school and you'd walk by the slaughterhouse. And by the way, if you've ever been by a slaughterhouse, the smell is shocking. So blood was just the norm running down the street. Yes.
So how do they refrigerate those cars? How do they keep them cool?
How they keep them cool? Exactly the same way they do now. They basically come up with a system that will suck out. If you look at a thing, it's basically then it was a very simple fan that would suck out the hot air, and then a process where they would suck it out, where they would bring in air past the electricals would either be steel or steam that would cool the air they bring in. But one of the basic ways they do it then too is just by sucking out the warm air, it leaves cool air inside. That was the first air conditioning. But then, like I say, you get air conditioning in a car, they suck out the warm air and bring in cool air. That's how they do it. They were starting to invent air conditioning with steam engines by the 1840s. But it was pretty haphazard, massive steam engine to cool a building, but it's the same process. The big thing is sucking out the cool air. And so all those little slaughterhouses, by the way, went out of business. This is good and bad. It also takes us further away from the actual production of food. So it can be very clean and sanitary. Nobody realizes how truly messy it is. We get very cavalier about going to get a burger, for example, and not realizing what goes into it. I mean, that's one of the things about people who hunt. They know what that means, And sometimes it's easy to forget that if you eat meat. But this, I'm just giving you the basics of it right now. By the way, this really did change everything. Stores became bigger. I mean, it just changed everything. Another one, telephone, Alexander Graham Bell. I think he wants to build on actually 8 different scientists that came up with the telephone. And think about this, how this revolutionized. Okay, I know communication, but think how this would change business transactions. This would allow for bigger businesses because you could run easier, even easier than telegraph, run a big business from one location. This is going to lead to more and more dominance of the market and therefore dominance of wealth in the hands of just a few. It's good and bad, like anything else. And the original telephone line, you ever seen an old picture of Helena? That used to have to have a one individual line going to every place. So it'd be like 1,000 phone lines going across Last Chance Gulch. They changed that now. Christopher Scholl's, I wonder what he invented. The pizza. And yes, the typewriter. Yes, the first pizza also came out. The first pizzas we know came out this time too, in Naples. Yeah, the typewriter. Mechanical typewriters. This would revolutionize communication, get documents out faster, and also came up with the keyboard we have now. And the reason why is because the original ones had a series of hammers, and here that would kind of click kind of hard. If you ever played with a manual typewriter, it's weird after doing a keyboard. You click hard, and the hammer comes up and types on the page. But if you go too fast, it jams. So letters you use more, they want to use these fingers because they can't go as fast. So that's why periods here, because your pinky can't go as fast as your index. So to slow you down.
Weird.
But since everybody learned that, that's what we're stuck with. So now it doesn't make sense for 99% of typing, but if you've learned typing, you learn that system. Next, we're going to do these pretty fast. Edison would be best known as minimal for this inventor, this new type of innovator, building on the advancements others are like Edison, literally stealing from his scientists. He had a lab in Menlo Park in New Jersey. In fact, the first motion pictures would be filmed in Menlo Park because that's where he was at. And he did not do much of the inventing himself, even though he was an inventor and a tinkerer and very intelligent. But he signed up inventors, made them write a contract that would give him control over the inventions, which is how most inventions are done today. Almost all inventing and innovation are done for corporations, and they get it and make money out of it. But here's Menlo Park. His most famous, of course, would be that thing he's holding right there, the vest pocket. And this would change the light bulb. And a lot of people working on different types of light bulbs. This was not new. They're using different kind of gases. So this was not necessarily a new invention. Their big innovation was a filament in here that did not break right away. So electricity could come through, and the light bulb would be one of those things that we would say that have created the modern world. Because then all of a sudden, you could run factories 24 hours a day. You could light up streets safely. Even though producing electricity could cause a lot of pollution, it was much cleaner than, let's say, coal oil lamps, which really were dirty. And it gave us this idea that you walk in a room and turn on a light and know where you're at. This idea, and trust me, we all know what it's like and how dependent we are on that if you ever get in a blackout in the middle of the night. And how it's like, oh my God. And that was the norm for everybody. We're now, it also made us addicted to it. We can't survive without it. What is a massive invention? The phonograph. The first one will be on a wax tube, but eventually the vinyl records. This is good and bad. It allowed access to more music, but before everybody sang and had to play instruments, and that would go away. And if you play an instrument or sing, that kind of thing, it gives you a better memory. You learn more. It really does. It's a great tool for training your mind. Anybody play an instrument? Anybody play the trumpet? Yes, I played the trumpet. It's okay. Okay. Piano? Good. Left hand. Guitar? Wow, we got a lot of people not play anything. Washboard? Okay, next. The Edison or dictabel would be the first tape recorder. So I'm going through these facts. You don't even know everyone, so you can see the advantage of this. First, on wax tubes, there was a very old Edison using that. But he also perfected the motion picture camera. And this was a magnificent invention. But not Edison. The electric dynamo would change everything. An electric dynamo would create electricity. Michael Faraday from England would actually make the electric dynamo. And the electric dynamo produced electricity. They had used batteries and known that certain things like zinc and nickel together created a battery. And they knew about static electricity. And they played with it. Well, Faraday was playing with magnets. And realized that electricity running through a cord operates like a magnet. What if you reverse it? Will a magnet operate in the right situation create electricity? And that's what happened here. By turning a crank, and that's his diagram of his original one, and turning a magnet that's around iron cores wrapped with copper, you turn this magnet, that will create electricity. And that's where electricity comes from. Almost all electricity. You turn a magnet wrapped by iron, and that creates electricity. And so you take this dynamo and scale it bigger, and do things like have run steam through a pipe, push the steam that will turn this, you have an electric power plant. You funnel water through a dam, you have high pressure water go through that turns a wheel, that turns the metal, that turns the magnet, and you have a hydroelectric dam. That's what windmills do. And that's the problem. We have other ways now to make electricity. And so solar energy, at first they tried to do that too. They would heat water and have that turn a dynamo. Now they have significantly better ways to do that, but that's where still most electricity comes from. A dynamo. So if you ever go to Canyon Ferry and walk past the 4 dynamos, these big massive things, it's just all big versions of this. Well, how do you get the electricity in the market? This is the wrong order. Where'd it go? And the big fight was between alternating or direct current. And this would be one of the biggest fights of the second industrial revolution. Alternating current would be perfected by Nikola Tesla and others too, but Tesla came up with the idea, others perfected it. And direct current would be championed by Edison, right here. And direct current is basically this. You have a line of electricity. A cord has electricity from the source and what you're trying to light. From the dynamo or the battery to the electrical light. That's it. That's it. And if the wire doesn't meet, if the wire isn't connected, no electricity goes through. You connect the wires, electricity pours through. It's relatively efficient. It's got great advantages to it, except for one very important thing. 2 very important things. The electricity will bleed out over time. The wire goes down the line and starts to bleed away. The second thing is this. If you have electricity going one direction, what if you change the destination, like somebody's hand? What happens? They die. That's a shock. If you connect it with your body. And, did I do that wrong?
Is it alternating?
Alternating, I had my mind all messed up, I'm sorry. Alternating current does that. Let's start over again. Direct current bleeds out, but it's very easy to stop the flow of electricity. You cut it off, you stop the flow. So it's safe. My fault, I just jumped ahead. It's one of the problems. When you get distracted, AKA I start looking at the snow and I say, I don't know what I'm talking about. I know you've never done that, have you? You forgive me? Alternating current is different. It doesn't bleed out as much, but instead of one constant flow of electricity, it goes through 2 lines of electricity. So essentially, instead of one line, you have the electrical source and light bulb. Okay, that's not a very good light bulb, so I would come up with a better one. So you have 2 sources. And what they do instead, so it doesn't bleed out as much, you send out tiny, very fast little shots of electricity. First one here, and it goes at the speed of light. So, and then send another one here, back and forth, just quick little charges. So it's so fast that the power to whatever the source is seems like it's constant. But since it's quick little charges, it doesn't bleed out as much. The problem is this: when you connect the wires, the power will go to whoever is touching it. So alternating current is really dangerous. If you grab alternating current and connect the 2 wires to the power source through, then you get electrocuted. So alternating current is significantly more dangerous. But if you ever look at a wire, like an extension cord or something, you notice there are 2 wires connected. Those are the 2 wires. And even if you get one that does have the 2 wires, inside there are 2 wires. Because I've done a little bit with electrical stuff. You cut them open, and you have to kind of pull out the 2 wires. You got to be really careful not to touch them. Don't connect them. Yeah. AC. So it's a lot more dangerous, but the power doesn't bleed out as much. And the big advantage is this. If the power doesn't bleed out as much with direct current, that means like virtually every house would have to have their own dynamo. Or every company. And that's what Edison wanted to sell the dynamos. The great thing about alternating current, then you can have bigger power sources. So you have one power source powering a bunch of different areas, like a hydroelectric dam or a coal power generating facility. And so with that, Edison, to prove how dangerous alternating current was, he knew that there was an elephant condemned to die named Topsy. He was a circus elephant who killed somebody, and they literally had a trial for Topsy, and they condemned Topsy to die. And so he electrocuted Topsy. He murdered this elephant. By the way, how ridiculous is that? It's some poor circus elephant, and they condemned him to die, and then they electrocuted him. So he killed Topsy. And I love elephants, so it's disgusting, but also we've got to remember this was 120 years ago. And to prove how dangerous it was. But because every single place had to have their own dynamo, it did not last. And with that, George Westinghouse would take Tesla's design and make big electric dynamos, the alternating system, make a ton of money, but AC would become the dominant source. I should add, because like have you ever seen a converter? So converters that would change from electric to direct current. Your car, since it's on a battery, is direct current. Solar electricity now, or solar electric panels, basically it will create, solar electricity creates a reaction that very much like charging a battery. So they use that source, so that's direct current. But some places you can have direct current and like a battery, and then they convert it to alternating current that goes into the whole grid. But you see the big wires, the big power wires, those are all alternating current, AC. And so, big shift, because once you have this and set up the infrastructure, at least in areas with money, they started getting electricity. Poorer areas, nope, there's no money in that. So, by 1900, the assumption was that they had created this massive world of never-ending change. So here is from something I found of what people thought 2000 would be like, considering the changes that are happening so fast by 1900 with the second industrial revolution. And who here sees that and realizes that, or is just really disappointed that didn't happen?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be
I
just
think it's
awesome?
doable too.
My favorite is this guy.
He doesn't have a balloon.
We haven't had, besides the internet was a big change, but many of the things that they thought would happen when I was your age or younger, you know, I know we're talking about the 1920s, but they thought would happen just didn't happen. They have not happened. So there has been a great amount of change, but the predictions did not happen at all for you know, heliparts in every house and just. But it's still funny to look at predictions and see how it's really hard to predict the future. So another big innovation, 1903, the airplane. The Wright brothers, who got a patent on it, and they were so protective of the patent, they never really exploited it the way they should. But at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, they had the first powered flight. Why Kitty Hawk, North Carolina? Winds from the ocean. The winds. And I know some of you thinking, well, how do planes work? And of course, we all know how planes work. I can't do it because I have a mask on. See? My mask works. See, I can't blow through it.
So
I have a very good mask. Huh?
So
So powered flight is a myth. It doesn't work. It's all a scam to get us. But normally, I would blow over this piece of paper, and the paper would rise. But I figured it's probably not a good idea to blow. Yeah. Just imagine. And that's what we call science. But that's why planes take off into the wind. Or if you know anything about aircraft carriers, they got to turn into the wind to take off. So this will be on the test. You have to know all of them? No. This just gives you an idea of the scope of the innovation. Okay, I just got this patent of a wing. It's pretty funny. But look at all the from the X-ray, film, skyscraper, phonograph, telephone, mail order catalog, air brakes. I mean, just so many I didn't even mention. We'll come back to dynamite. Trust me. Yes, Nobel felt guilty. That's the Nobel Peace Prize. It's pretty shocking, isn't it? The scope of innovation. And yes, there's a significant amount of innovation today, but frankly, in the changing of people's lives, it doesn't even compare to that. It doesn't even compare. Because most innovation is just basically ways to innovate something to get a monopoly to make money. And don't get me wrong, I know there's some big innovation. I mean, there's little apps of little games on your phone. I mean, you got to admit, that's just, okay, that's what a lot of the innovation is. All right, so, but the big thing is the patent office was created, this is in the Constitution, but by this, to incentivize creation, this will give somebody a monopoly. And most patents don't make money, but this will give somebody a monopoly. This can also be very problematic. Do you know anything about pharmaceutical companies? And you know how much money they're making from this vaccine. And what Pfizer just did, wow. And they lied through their teeth, by the way, about how many they're going to produce. Actually, it was what makes my stomach hurt thinking about it. But there weren't very many patents, but once you start building on innovations, we have almost 2 million patents a day, or 2 million patents a year. But half of them literally are. For example, Apple patented that curve on a phone. Because you see a logic around it if you put a phone in your pocket, right? But they patented that so other companies couldn't have that curve. So they can sue Samsung. Yeah, that's what most patents are. It's patent fault. So that's actually a big problem with patents. There are some issues with that. It creates a monopoly, incentivizes creation. It also creates monopolies. So next, railroads. The biggest innovation was railroads. I love this picture from, you talk about all the production that goes with a railroad. Look what's involved to make that. I mean, think of everything necessary to make this railway trestle, this railroad through this. You can't just simply say railroad and it appears. What do you need to make that? Timber. Yeah, so you need a massive logging industry. That's why about 97% of the forests that were around in 1620 in the in what is now the continent of the United States were cut down. 97% by 1900. Why? Well, lots of reasons, but wow, did they just chew up forests with the railroad? Now, in some areas trees grow back, but you go to places like Montana, they don't grow back very fast. I think you know what I'm talking about. You sow trees and they clear cut it in the 1980s and it's about this high now. Yeah. So that's an issue with logging, but that's another story for down the road. But okay, you need a massive timber industry, which means a massive infrastructure for timber. What else do you need? Yeah, and you can't just have any yahoo. So that means schooling and training, and not just engineers. Engineers literally were the people around the train, but let's say what would become like an engineer to design the railroad and design the trestle. That means intense schooling. That means a massive infrastructure for this. You can't just simply say, you're an engineer because you know 1 + 1 = 2. Did you know that? Everyone knew that? You're an engineer! What else do you need? Iron and steel. And it can't just be any yahoo making steel. This has got to be high quality steel. Because of the pressure of the steam engine, if it's not high quality steel, it blows up. Bad for morale of the engineer. What else? Yeah. So you need a massive workforce of all these people. Willing, not willing, I mean, people usually are desperate enough to take jobs like that. It's hard work. Yeah, this massive system of immigration and workers that come in. And then you have to feed them, you have to clothe them, you then eventually need a place to live. And this is a massive operation. What else do you need?
Fuel for a locomotive.
So you need wood, coal, and then oil. That's a massive infrastructure. What else do you need? What are they going to sit on? You need high quality, durable leather seating. What else do you need? You have to know how to make, or you have to have better materials to make bridges. Can you see a problem with trestles? Yeah. Forest fire, wood rots. So you need high quality steel. So that's another, that kind of delves into engineering and other skills. What else do you need? Does you need to know what time it is? If you don't know what time it is, how can you schedule a train? It's really bad for trains if one train's coming this way, another train's coming this way. What else do you need?
Someone to drive with me.
Yeah, so that's another whole bit of, and all the workers on it, you need all these trained skills. You need brakes, don't you? For obvious reasons. Don't you need places to repair the trains? Don't you need terminals? Don't you need towns along the way? Do you get the point what a big operation trains are? Why do we have time zones? Trains. The railroads made them. Because they had to know what time it is. And then we all just adapted. Trains did it, and we said, okay, sounds good. And so, this is a massive operation. To make a railroad affects every single part of the economy. Does that make sense? That's the point I'm trying to get. Railroads. So railroads would revolutionize society, also end a lot of the problems with inbreeding. Thank you, railroads. Okay, so with that, you can get out of your little town and go to other towns, and therefore find a mate who's not your cousin. It's something you don't think about until you think about it. Like, oh, yeah. It's nice to have children without massive chins and faces like horses. So with that, and how did this happen? Huge amounts of government aid, direct and indirect. I mean, giving money to a railroad helps the timber industry. So we'll finish this up. Everything takes long. This is we're talking about our world now. When the federal government gives money to build highways, doesn't it ripple to everything? Massive government aid for business. And then, of course, they'll have people say, no one helped me. Well, yeah, actually, you did. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm helping you right now by letting you leave. Don't forget the notes from Wednesday. Most of you got the Gilded Age notes in. I am adding additional points to it. I'm just starting to go through them. But I'm still, as long as I'm on this schedule, I'm still allowing for late work. If we go back to 5-day a week, that's done. The current one? Oh,
it's about like Edison and Nikola Tesla, and it's about the alternating direct. It's really cool.
Yeah, is it?
My parents and I watched it. It came out a few years ago. It has Benedict Cumberbatch in it.
Okay.
You should watch it. It's a good movie. It's not necessarily historically accurate. There's some things that we left out and we were like, yeah, no, but it's a good movie.
You know, it's hard to make completely historically accurate because they still have to have people watch the movie. The current one.
Yeah.
It sounds vaguely familiar. I'll have to watch that.
Yeah.
What did you watch it on?
I think we rented it on Amazon, but I'm not sure.
But it's entertaining and worth the watch?
Yeah, it's good.
Who's Faraday? I've seen Wayne Festival, right?
No, he's excellent.
He's Edison. He's good at it. Wow, I didn't think he'd be. Wow, that's good.
Yeah.
Thank you for recommending that. That sounds good. So you can't do anything else. We could watch the movie. Anybody else? Anybody else figured it out? All right, good. Sorry, we're talking stuff. Did you guys know it's snowing? It's supposed to be 48 feet by tomorrow. Maybe more. So just hunker down. Then it's gonna be 90. How many examples of cold war heroes did you get? There's a bunch, but they kind of come at you later. And there'll be a bunch more. So just, I mean, like literally, write it down. It's black and white. There's some little bits, that we're not used to. But I'm glad you like it. I think it's good. It's a good movie. The remake that you watched. Well, Charlie watched. He watched the 78 one. It's a scary story. I think that one's on Netflix. Don't hold me. It takes a little more modern, big city. It's good. It's disturbing. I'm just warning you. Really good actors. And the director makes a cameo. The director of the original makes a cameo. And so does the main actor from the original. Which I'm not pretty great idea. And do you think that's okay if I give you guys a list? Equipment, just you guys pick UV. Here's a little. I'll put it on. Even the hokey one. Dracula. It's if you get past the overacting, you want.